Good morning again, everybody. It's lovely to have you with us as this week we are looking at the concept of one anothering, looking at the different instructions in the New Testament that are given to Christian believers, Christian churches, as to how we should be relating to one another in this concept we call fellowship. We call it fellowship so easily, and yet all too often that word is restricted to drinking coffee after a service, whereas fellowship is so much richer, so much warmer than that. And on this Tuesday morning, the second day of February, it's lovely to have you with us as we chat some more about one anothering. And this morning, I want us to look at another instruction, encouragement, assumption that is made in the New Testament. When the Apostle Paul writes, well, he mentions it 5 times actually, writes the Romans, both letters to the Corinthians, in Thessalonians. Actually, that's 4 times, isn't it? Anyway, he mentions it 4 times, and he says this: greet each other with a holy kiss. Greet each other with a holy kiss. Now, I'm sure as I mentioned that causes some of you to feel, oh, where's he going with this? Well, stay with us. We'll talk about that over the next few moments. When Peter writes his first letter, he says, encourages his readers to greet one another with a kiss of love. Now, some 40 years ago, when I was pastoring a church in Parkhurst in Johannesburg, a Baptist church. It was the first time that I was on my own. The advantage was in those days that I knew everything. As I got older, I've discovered that that's not quite accurate. But nevertheless, one of the most gracious men I ever met was Dr. Jack Widd. Jack Widd was a member of our congregation, old enough to be my father. He was a man who had 3 doctorates. He was a lecturer at the Baptist Theological Seminary, and he was part of the congregation, and he was always so gracious and accepting. Both he and his wife Amber were accepting and gracious towards Val and myself. And at one stage, we were having a discussion about this concept of what does it mean to greet one another. And he had done some research, he told me, that, and it seemed to him that in this research, he discovered that in that context, greeting was almost like a double handshake. You know, a handshake where you have one another's hands sandwiched together. And anyway, Jack suggested that that was what this holy kiss, the sacred kiss, was all about. But whether he was right or not, in a sense, is immaterial. The issue here is that when we're talking about a kiss in a relationship, we're talking about an element of warmth, an element of relational warmth within a relationship. And in these days of physical distancing, of course, that has become impossible. Maybe we've got more used to the fact these days that we not everybody kisses one another these days, but at least there's hugging or warm handshakes, if nothing else. And maybe that has taken the place of what we read of as a holy kiss, with which we are to greet one another with a kiss of love. But be that as it may, whatever it might be, it speaks to a coming together of people in a warm relationship with one another. And that warmth of relationship would cut across all the normal social barriers, whatever they may be. And choosing to, yesterday we spoke about acceptance, welcoming of one another, but choosing to demonstrate that welcoming in a physical response of either hugging or of shaking hands at least. I can remember as a leader of a young adults group in Cape Town in the early days, we used to have lots of discussions about what it is to have fellowship. And one of the girls who today is serving the Lord in Turkey, by the way, but nevertheless, she always came up with some lovely phraseology. And as we were talking about it, she said, "It seems to me that fellowship is feeling good with God in a group." How about that for a definition of fellowship? That fellowship is feeling good with God in a group. And when we consider that we are encouraged to accept one another, welcome one another, we're encouraged to greet one another with a holy kiss, maybe that's not so far off the mark. That it's feeling good with God in a group because there's a gathering in which there is a sense of relational warmth. And this morning, as you take time out, won't you ask yourself, maybe ask the Lord to give you some ideas, some thoughts about how you can demonstrate relational warmth to others when you see them in these times of physical distancing? How can we do that? And maybe it's got to be just in our demeanor, not just the words we use, but the spirit behind the words that we use. And ask the Lord that He will help you to demonstrate a warmth of relationship as we greet one another with a holy kiss, with the kiss of love in our fellowship. We'll chat some more tomorrow.